Hola, you are listening to First Gen Healing, a podcast on Latinx healing and awakening journeys. My name is Priscilla Luna. I am your host. And I'm so excited because we're trying something new here in the podcast. We're going to be doing a part two, and this one is going to be with Claudia. So if you didn't listen to part one, make sure that you listen to that. But before we get started, I'll let Claudia reintroduce herself so you get to know a little bit about her.
Yay! Hello, everybody. My name is Claudia. I am the daughter of immigrant parents, Mexican immigrant parents, and I am living out here in Seattle, Washington. I'm a first-gen Latina business coach, and I am freaking passionate about international travel. So let's get it, Priscilla. Let's talk about travel.
Woohoo! So exciting. Yes. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. Well, if you listen to part one, you'll know that this is what fuels her fire, right? This is what made you make some major life changes. So tell me, maybe like, was it a certain place you went to that started this? Was it like the idea of a place? Like, how did it all start for you?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the travel bug bit me when I was in college. So my background is I grew up in a really small farm town. I always joke around that there's like more cows than people in that ranchito, literally. And so I felt like I grew up under a rock. At the time, I didn't know it. It was just my little hometown. That's it. And then I went to college, and which was located in Seattle. And Seattle is like the biggest city in Washington. And I was like, whoa, there's a whole world out here other than my little ranchito. What is this? And that gave me that feeling of exploration, adventure, new things in my life that I hadn't experienced in the last 18 years. Now,
Mm.
when I was in college, um, my brother was about to graduate. So we did get to share 1 year in college. And he told me my freshman year, Claudia, you should study abroad. And I was like, what is that? He's like, that's when you go to another country and you study there, you get the same credits, but you do it in another country. How cool is that? And for me, it was like, oh, that sounds scary. Like all I need is my ranchito and the cows, I was like, that, what do you mean? Like another country. And so he told me all of this my freshman year. I decided not to go because I was scared. I was like, what is he talking
Mm.
about? What is this? Now, sophomore year came around and he was like, Claudia, this is something that you cannot miss out on. Go to study abroad. There's this program happening in the summer. It's just 1 month. Just try it out. Just apply. And I was like, okay, let's do it. By then, I was like, I was already more integrated into that college life. I wanted to try new things. I was like, 1 month, 4 weeks, let's do it. So I applied to a program in French Polynesia in the island of Tahiti, which is a sister island of Bora
Wow.
Bora. Many people just know Bora Bora, but Tahiti is like the sister island. I applied, I went. And that was the most life-changing trip to this day that
Wow.
switched it up for me. There's this little Mexican girl from a little farm town flies across the world over the ocean to make it to an island where they didn't speak my language, where it was a completely new culture that I had never heard of, food that I've never seen, smells that I've never smelled, like conversations that I thought I would have never had, experiences, everything that like I
Wow.
went through like a whole 180 change of like, there is a world out here. What is this? And so I really loved getting to meet other people and seeing how they were living, how they grew up, the way that they saw life. And I started noticing from not just that trip, but following trips that people live very differently than they do in the States. They in Tahiti, it was a lot of, I like to use this phrase of people working to live versus living
Mm.
to work.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
all I knew in the States was like, you study hard and you work hard, and that's it. And that's it.
Yeah.
But when I started traveling abroad, people out here are working to live. They're living a life, no, like a lot of them say, no pasa nada, pura vida, like it's like they really enjoy the presence, the family surroundings. A meal can take 2 hours and you just enjoy it. And here we're always on the rush. And so it was those little things that I started seeing of like, oh my gosh, people are living like this in other sides of the world. I want to go to more countries and see what it's like there. And also experiences that I was having that I would have never dreamed of having, that I didn't even know existed, like swimming with sharks and swimming with stingrays and jumping off waterfalls and doing
Ooh.
things that I was like, how old was I? Like 20 at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, I was 20 years old, and it was the first time that I had ever swam at a beach. And so
Wow.
I remember, like if it was yesterday, I saw the ocean. We were staying at a house right in front of the ocean. It was our host parents' house. And walking outside and diving in, I didn't know that it was salt water. And I remember it was so salty. I was like, this is how the ocean tastes. And I think that's where it was like, what have I been missing out on? What is this? And I think that's where it really bit me, the travel bug. And that's where my idea of like, this is just one country out of the 100 plus some countries that there's in this world.
Yeah.
Me, I'm going to start exploring more. I'm going to start going out. I'm going to start meeting people from other cultures. I'm going to start seeing how they live. I'm going to start breaking from my routine and from that feeling that I always have to just live to work, because I want
Mm.
to live. I want to enjoy life and its most precious moments. So
Wow.
there's that.
Okay, I was not expecting that at all. I think like when people say they travel abroad, I usually hear like, I don't know, like Europe or, just like, I don't know. But never did I think it like in an island you could study abroad, in what was it, Tahiti or Bora Bora? Tahiti, how cool. Wow. So what a mind shift, right? Like, yeah. Ooh, okay, okay. So that was the first place that like bit the travel bug bit you there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like for me, the big jump was going to Europe. I did something similar where I just told myself, like, people save their whole lives to do this one trip to Europe. At least, like, how I saw it. Like, oh no, Europe is like when you retire,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
yep.
So my goal was like, I want to break that barrier. Like, I want to go now. And I got in debt, whatever. Like, everything was on credit cards. So I was like, whatever. I did it the cheapest I could too. Like, I got the cheapest everything. But I broke that barrier for myself. And I was like, oof, yes, I want more of this. But if I'm being honest, since then, I feel like I started to get discouraged by life and just like income and expenses, and that goal and dream is still there, and like that's why I'm changing my life and trajectory as well. But I'm wondering if the same happened to you, or how have you kept it alive, because obviously you need income in order to be able to like travel, or maybe you're like not really, like there's other ways to do it. I don't know, you tell us.
Juicy question. Girl, I was traveling broke um, when I first started. So the way I maintained it alive in college was sophomore. That summer, I studied abroad in Tahiti. I wanted more, so I applied to another study abroad program that same year, and then I went to Ecuador. And I was like, I want it longer. So then my junior year, I applied to a quarter-long Rome program. So I was out there living in Rome for a whole quarter, and that was when I tapped into Europe. I was like, what is this? Europe? What the heck? Holy moly, I need to come back. What is this?
Yeah.
And then the following year, I was like, I want it even longer. So I studied abroad a semester long in Spain. And that's another story of me falling in love and being obsessed with Spain. But during those times, it was like paying regular tuition. So even if I had studied in Seattle, it would have been the same price. So my tuition was covered. And then I also applied for scholarships, study abroad scholarships. And then I've always been someone to work and save my little, my little savings throughout the years. And so with the little that I had, I would be like using it to spend. But I mean, it was just like an extra gelato type of thing, it was like,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like the la gran cosa. I was really on a budget as a student, especially. And then, okay, after that was like, oh, I want to do more than just a semester, more than just a month. And then there comes the story of when I applied for a job in Spain. It was a 2-year contract. So after I graduated, I took off. I was so nervous.
Mm.
I I didn't know how I was gonna do it financially. Again, it was just me taking a leap because I really had I didn't have like a full-time job. I was a student. I had just graduated. The little jobs that I had were like little mini part-time.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going abroad, and I looked at all my expenses. This is how much I'm going to get paid a month there. And this is how much my bills are going to be. Okay, that covers it. Does it give me enough to travel? Not really, but let's do it because I'm going to be in Spain and living
Yeah.
like a local. Like I'm gonna be living like a local. Like if to give you an example, I was getting paid 700 euros a month when I was
Wow.
over there, which turns out to be like I want to say like 600 something US dollars, right? Now,
Yeah.
that is living like a local, like people that are working full time back then, that's what they would get in a month, around 700 euros. So then that kind of tells you, oh, okay, things are definitely cheaper. Food, transportation, rent, all of that, I was able to get it covered by those 700 euros. And so I was there for 2 years, and I made it work. I guess I became a great budgeter. I had an extra euro to like do little trips here and there, um, because I do remember revisiting Rome. I loved it so much that when I was in Spain,
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
and like flights are really cheap out there from country to country. Like I got some for like $80, $45. I'm like $60 to go to Paris. Let's do it, kind of a
Dude,
thing. So
yes. Yeah.
I got smart with my money and just wasn't. I was not spending on materialistic things at all. I was living off a suitcase. Everything I was buying was like necessities, rent, bills, and food, and the little extra did not go for any materialistic things. It was just like, can I afford this flight to Paris? Even if it means I'm just eating sandwiches all day, let's do it. So that's how I was
Wow.
doing it. Now I came back to the States, and that's when I got into grad school. That's when I started, working. And I was like, no, I want to do it in a way where I can sustain it and be flexible with my travels, but also have the finances to travel. That's one big thing. Traveling is expensive, especially nowadays. So once I became an entrepreneur, I made it a mission that I was going to take it full time so then I can start traveling with my business. And so I can start generating enough income to travel abroad. And that's how I've been able to sustain it ever since then. It's been through my business, by being able to take it full time and generating enough to be able to just take my work with me and choose whatever country I want to go
Mm.
to. So that's how it's been. 3 different stages of my travel journeys right there.
How interesting. Okay, okay. So yeah, so first studying abroad, then working abroad, and now we'll get into the now. But I did want to go back to Europe. So yeah, one thing I'll say, if you guys like, if the listeners haven't been out to Europe, it is affordable to go from one of the places to the next. Because I think to us out here, it's like Paris and Rome, like, but out there, I took a Eurobus, one of the cheapest ways of transportation. It was like 20 euros to go from Paris to Barcelona.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
if you can imagine, like, $20, I was like, because at first, when I was gonna go, I was just going to go to Paris because my friend was out there. And then I was like, but if I'm gonna go, like, I want to go, like, I want to go to the different places. And when I started seeing that there was just ways of really cheaply, like, going from one place to another, I got to visit Rome, which I want to talk about because I want to live there. I got to go to Rome, I got to go to Barcelona and Amsterdam and Paris. Yeah, I did my little trip.
Oh,
But it is super affordable to like go. So I just want to put that out there for those of you, because I know it can feel so distant. And I personally still don't have any family members except my sister that have gone to Europe, like it's not like known, like traveling, let's say, it can be really intimidating. And so yeah, just putting out there. Okay, how was it living in Spain? Like, how was that experience? Like the locals, like what was that like?
girl. Oh my gosh. Okay, so high key in love with Spain. I stayed abroad there for a semester, and then I
The
lived.
conquistadores.
That's what my sister tells me all the time. Oh my god. But it was there. So many things happened in Spain that now have like a big place in my heart, and it is why I keep going back every year. Okay, the first thing are the people, right? When I stayed abroad, I was staying in a host family's house. So I really bonded with this family. And to this day, me and my host mom talk every single month. And like she FaceTimed
Wow.
me on my birthday. Last year I went to see her. Like she's my family. I see her like my grandma. She's now
Mm.
in her 70s. And so when I think of Spain, I think of my people, like my friends, my host mom. And that's something that I love because they taught me so much about life through how they're living life. So if I'm describing the people that I met in Spain, they are very warm people. They spread a lot of love. And again, I'm talking about the southern part of Spain. Northern part, people talk differently about the people in the north. It's cold and it's raining. And so people say that they're more indoors and more distant people. But down in the south, there's a sun and there's the beaches, and people are out and about, and they're just very kind, very warm. They live like they live on the streets, not like live on the streets, but like let's go get a cafecito. It's like, okay, let's go meet at a plaza. Let's go do this. Okay, let's meet at the beach. Let's go do this. And it's always outside. In the States, a lot of us, hey, you want to hang out? Come over to my place, or we're going to do a little kickback here this weekend. In Spain, it's like we're hanging out, but outside on the streets, on the plaza, on the beach. We were always outside, and it was just like a beautiful thing of like, oh, like you guys don't live indoors, like in a cubicle,
Yeah.
and then because here in the States, it's like we live in a home, we get in a car, we go to a cubicle, we get back in the car, we get back home,
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah.
And so for them, every single day was like, yo, we're outside. And they have like siesta time, so in the middle of the day they stop going to work and they go home, they take a break for a couple of hours. And I don't know, the way their system is laid out is really one that allows people to enjoy themselves and their family and their friends. I saw that a lot of people cherish that over materialistic things, over cars, over houses. So when I was over there, I rarely met anyone that had a car, because where I was living, it was
Mm.
all walking, or busing or training. So it allowed more social connections. It allowed more being in the present with each other. It allowed more time for meals, like having a meal. Maybe you experience this in Rome, where you go to have a meal. It's maybe dinner time. And next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, but you're vibing with the waiter or the waitress because they're not kicking you out. They enjoy kind of like having you around, and they enjoy seeing you, enjoy time with your friends. Versus here in the States, it's like, here's a check, thank you for coming, need to go. Like,
Yeah. It's all transactional.
yeah,
Yeah.
here I've always felt like very rushed, on the go. And in Spain, I really got those vibes of like calm down, take it easy, slow down, there's no rush, enjoy the sunset, enjoy the birds, enjoy
Oh.
favorites. Like no one, like if you were to walk with people in Spain, they walk so slow. And at first I was like trying to walk past them, I'm like, why are they walking so slow? Like, but then
Yeah.
like, well, where are you trying to go? I'm like, oh, like nowhere, I was just going to the beach. Like, do you like, what's the rush? And I was like, oh, like why am I walking so fast? Like, and so I learned to, shape my experiences based on how their lifestyle kind of was. Like, take it slow, walking slow, enjoying the moment, taking long meals with my friends. The other thing was that they're always festejando. It's a
Mm.
festejo and party all the time. I think they're one of the countries that has the most holidays. They have a lot of 3-day weekends, a lot of 4-day weekends, because they're always celebrating, and they go hard. I mean, clubs close at 6 in the morning. And for me, that was like, yo, you're walking out sun is rising out of a club. Like what? Because social connections is so huge out there. And so yeah, a lot of festivities, and it felt just like very freeing, very liberating, like a big party. It's just beautiful. The food, the beaches, the flamenco, the music. Girl, I can keep going on for hours, but that's just a glimpse.
Wow. Okay. So is the South like, is Barcelona in the South and Madrid in the North or no?
So the South is composed of no, not Barcelona, Madrid. It's like maybe like where Antonio Banderas was born. That's more in the south, but in the center, it's Madrid, right in the smack center of Spain. That's Madrid, and then in the north, you have Barcelona. So Barcelona
Oh.
top right. What is that? Never eat. Northeast side of here. Yeah. So
Okay, okay.
Barcelona is one of the, I mean, it is the biggest city there is. It's the most diverse and it's very fast paced compared to the rest of the country. The,
Interesting.
the southern part, it is said, they always say, we have the people in the south say we have the sun and we have the beaches. That's why we're more out because of beaches and it's always great weather. But once you're in the north, I think Barcelona is definitely considered one of the faster paced. The weather is sometimes gloomy and rainy. And yeah.
Super interesting. I know you mentioned you don't really like know astrology, but it's like that's how I see people. Like, so in the months, like the months that get closer to the summer, I see like that's how I see it. Geminis, Cancers, Leos, they're more warm, they're more outgoing, they're more like this. And then you get into like winter, like Capricorn, Scorpios, like well, Scorpio, yeah, Capricorn, like I see them as like a little bit more retraídos, you know, like a little bit like and in Paris, they say the same thing. Like people are in a bad mood because it's like
Yeah.
gloomy. And I experienced that, dude. I was like, okay, yeah, the people are not like friendly here. So I'm wondering, as a Latina, like in Spain, was that ever like a thing or no? Like there was no, I don't know if discrimination, but like did it become a thing or was it like seamless, you know, being there?
It was definitely a thing. Not as much as in other countries. Rome, girl, everyone would be like, Mexicana, Latina, Shakira. I'm like, okay, okay. Like, you're moving a little like, okay, guys. In Spain, so there was only one time where I experienced like a form of discrimination. I'll share that in just a sec. But outside of that, I was embraced. It like it wasn't a big thing. It was they just instantly knew that I was Mexicana. Instantly, my accent, instantly. Why? Because people in Spain watch novelas, and where do like 90% of
Mm,
the novelas come from? From Mexico. So
yeah.
hilarious. They're like, we know you're Mexicana because you sound just like the las mexicanas in the novelas that we see, and it's like, okay, yeah, but that was pretty much it. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Spain is highly made of like a lot of Spaniards. It's not a very diverse country. So the one place that I did experience discrimination was, I remember going into the store, with a makeup store, with two of my Mexicana friends. And I feel like there was only like 5 Mexicanas in total in that city. Like literally, we were like the only brown faced people, or Mexicanas. I mean, there was a bit of diversity out there, but Mexicans, I only knew of us three. So we went into this makeup store, and we were just checking out some lipsticks and like, cutesy things here and there. And we started noticing that the girl that worked there, the employer, was following us around. And whenever we
Mm.
like grab something, like she would literally go like right next to me, like something about Spain, there's no bubble space. There is absolutely no
Oh.
bubble space. Like someone can talk to you and they're like away from your face. I would have to take steps back because people were talking to me this close, and I'm like, whoa, 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 you're too close. But that's their thing because there's so many people. Like it's such a thing that there's no bubble space here in the States. It's
Mm.
like, arms length away, please. But anyways, going back to that experience, she was just super close, and like we would grab one thing and like she would be right next to us, like rearranging it and like looking at us and everything,
Oh.
like micro seeing us. I don't know what you call that, But I was like, oh, like what? And at first I was like, why is she so close? And then we would walk to a whole other section. And I told my friends, like, yo, have you like this? Is this girl following us? What's going on? And sure enough, we would go to that corner and we would see her eyeballing us and heading over to us to kind of like clean up what we would like looking at. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
no, what is this? So at that moment, it was like the first time there. It was like my second year in Spain, I believe. And I was like, no, I'm leaving. I'm
Mm.
out. Like, this is not, this is so uncomfortable. And we kind of just left. So that was that experience.
Okay. So aside from that though, like pretty well received. It wasn't like in every store that you go into, that's what would happen.
Oh my gosh, no. I remember, for example, last year I went to Spain. Um, and I was getting free shots at like restaurants because they were so nice. And I'm like, are people this nice to everybody or what's going on? But they saw, they were like, they instantly hear the Mexican. And I think it's one of the accents that it's highly known out of Latin America just because of like novelas that they watch. And it was like, oh, it is Mexicana. I'm like, yeah. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm solo traveling. And they're like, oh, and like they would just bring like a shot. I'm like, and it's in la casa. I'm like, oh, thank you. So I always felt very embraced, very welcomed, and I have always had a great conversation with Spaniards.
And they speak Spanish, I'm guessing. Because in Barcelona, they spoke Catalan, which
Yeah,
I was surprised by. I was like, what? You guys are supposed to be the easy country, like the one that speaks Spanish.
that was such a culture shock. Barcelona was the first place I ever went to. And I remember the signs were not in Spanish. I remember going to a gelato shop and it was like the flavors were not in Spanish. And I was like, did I land in the country that I was meant to land? Is this Barcelona? What's going on? And then I asked
Yeah.
the ice cream scooper person, I was like, ¿hablan español? And they're like, sí. And I was like, oh, es que veo que the signs are not in Spanish. And they're like, oh, it's
Yeah.
catalán. Aquí hablamos catalán y español, pero más catalán. I was like, oh, but yes, going back to Spain, to the Spanish, yeah, they speak all Spanish. They don't have a,
Mm,
um,
mm,
they have a lot of dialects up in the north. They have like Catalan, and like two, three others up in the north, but in the south, it's all Spanish. The thing about southern Spain is that they talk so fast that, for example, for me, the first 2 months, I didn't understand them. They had to repeat themselves and they had to slow it down for me. Because
mm,
one, the vocabulary is different than what we have. And two, they chop off like half of their words, and three, they speed it up in a way that I've never heard someone talk so fast. And so put those together in a sentence, you're gonna ask someone like, can you repeat that? So it was very interesting to get the hang of it. But now that I have, they even told me, they're like, if you can learn the Spanish in the South, whatever Latin American country you go to, like El Caribe, they like Cubans and Puerto Ricans, they also have a different type of slang and way of speaking. They told me like you're gonna be able to understand all types of Spanish because our Southern Spain Spanish is the hardest one because they talk
mm,
like really fast, and yeah, so that's their type of Spanish.
I see. And you mentioned solo traveling. So, do you have any like tips? Let's say someone's like, I want to travel and I don't have anyone to do it with. I actually did my trip to Europe alone, which is why. So I like met up people on the way, but Barcelona was my like solo part, right? And I was like, this is the easy one though, because they speak Spanish there. And then they did it, and I was like, no. But regardless, do you have any like tips for people that are like wondering about solo traveling? Is there like websites where you check on safety, or how do you usually manage like a trip, I guess?
Yeah, so what I when I usually, and are you talking about like going to Europe, Spain, or just in general all over
I
the
think in general.
yeah.
Yeah. Are you a solo traveler, or do you usually like find someone to go with to your trips?
Um, I'm usually with someone, majority of the time.
Okay.
Yeah, majority of
Okay,
the time.
gotcha.
So the time, so for example, when I went solo traveling, the freshest one in Spain, and what I like to do is look at okay, the country that I'm going to, okay, it's going to be Spain. You know, it can be like, I don't know, Ecuador, Costa Rica. And then I would look at like, yeah, I literally just go into Google, like safest place for solo female travelers, and kind of get an idea of that. And then look into the biggest thing I look for is like where I'm staying. I mean, you got to feel safe. Ads.
Mm-hmm.
I like to look into like either Airbnb. So I know a lot of people do hostels. Do a hostel that, I mean, they have all the information on there, the pricing, the rating, how many people have stayed, the good comments, the bad comments, and get a really good vibe for it. And then just go for that. For solo female travelers, I would definitely recommend a community type of place to stay, because then you meet other travelers and you're not alone, and the people at the reception are the best. They have things already planned out for you. You arrive and it's like, we're gonna do a tour this afternoon. If you want to join us, there's 20 other people coming with us. And then you say yes, and then you make friends. And then once you make friends, it's like, cool, let's hang out for the rest of the time that I'm here, kind of a thing. So I feel like that's one of the primary things to look at. Where are you gonna stay? Is it in a safe space? Is it giving you safe vibes? And do they
Yeah.
actually also have activities that you can be a part of? Because that's a great way to meet other solo travelers and then link arms with them, and they're just as excited and nervous as you, and they're down, of course, to do whatever it is that you guys want to do together. Hey, you want to go, you know, for this dinner place, or you want to go to the beach? Let's do it. So you guys do it together, you feel safer. And then also looking at activities in the area that you might like that are also group activities. I think that's also
Mm.
super fun to do. You can see in Airbnb, for example, that's where I do a lot of it's called Airbnb experiences. For example, I've done salsa classes, and it tells me how many people are going. I'm like, oh my gosh, 10 other
Ooh.
cool, I'm signing up for that. Or excursions of whatever sort, or walking tours are a great place for you to meet like a big group of people. So I feel like making sure that you are in a safe place, but that you also have community around you, because it can get kind of lonely and scary. Like if
Mm-hmm.
it's just you, if it's just you planning it out, if it's just you staying in one room, one Airbnb, if it's just you in one solo activity, maybe you chose to ride a horse and it's just you riding the horse by yourself.
Yeah.
Um, like choose activities that you can do in a community, choose a place to stay where there's other solo travelers staying. I think that would be, those would be like my biggest tips.
Okay, love that. Is there any like budget airplane ticket tips that you have, like based on your experiences?
Let's see. When it comes to budgeting, I've learned this the hard way. I'm someone that buys tickets the very last minute, but if you already know that you want to travel months ahead, a year ahead, whatever that may be, look ahead into that ticket and go ahead and buy it now, because it will go up. So that would be like,
Mm,
because I have seen the difference. You can save a couple $100s. I mean, that's a good chunk. And then, oh my gosh, I had another one and it just slipped my mind. And it was about airplane travel. Okay, anyways, let me go on to the next tip. The next tip is, if you want to save quite a bit on your airplane, on food, on activities, go during a time that is considered low season for traveling versus
mm,
high peak. So, for example, some places have its high peak during the summer. Best believe those airplane tickets are going to be so expensive compared to the off season, or the
yeah.
food, or the even the souvenirs, little things like that. Like they just bump up the price, and it's going to be quite more expensive. Um, Other areas, its high seasons are like during the winter time. Other places, it's during the fall time. So wherever it is that you're going to go, because it's a whole world out here, check when is its high peak season and its low peak season, and then compare the prices. You will see the airplane prices hundreds of dollars apart. So if you are able to go during a low peak season, I would recommend that.
Yeah.
One place that I think of right now is like Puerto Rico. I freaking love Puerto Rico, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hot in the summer. So can I go sometime when it's not summer, so I can save myself quite a few $100? So really think about that. If you are able to do that, that's a big way that you can save. And And then other than that, I just typically stick to Google Flights, and you can turn on
Mm.
notifications on when the prices drop. So I kind of like to view them that way. Another thing to think about is that different countries are, when it comes to the expenses, you will be spending differently in each country. So look at the countries that you really want to go to. And if it's about finances and saving, choose a country where it's like a little bit less expensive. So, I mean, what like I want to give you like a really expensive country compared to something else in the same location. So let's think of the continent of Europe.
Mhm.
A really expensive place to go to in Europe is Greece. You're gonna
Ooh.
Greece, the food, the activities, things are going to be expensive in Greece. So just know that they are. And if you want to go there, just plan ahead. Now, the same continent, Europe, but maybe you go to Spain. Oh my gosh. I mean, Spain, I mean, one beer is like a €1.50, for example, like those
Wow.
cañas. The tapas that I would get there were like €2 to €3 a tapa plate. With two of them, I was like, okay, I'm pretty full with my beer. Like, and things are very cheap, and it's like it's the same flight to Europe, different countries, different expenses. So really think about what continent do I want to go to. If you're open to it, of course, right? Some people are like, no, I only want to go to this one country. But if you are open to like looking at a continent, whether it be South America, I'm looking at the Caribbean, or I'm looking at Europe or Africa, look at those continents and then choose like your top 3 countries and like see the price differences, because they are different. Every country is very different with its currency and finances.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I just thought of one, which is like try to travel light. So like when I went to Europe, I just took like carry-on baggage. And that really helped, like especially because I then backpacked kind of like from one country to the, like I did a little bit of everything. And it helped that I just had my maleta and like my backpack, instead of like a big luggage and like all kinds of things. Like if you're going for the experience, I mean, if you're going for like IG pics and stuff, that's another probably another way of traveling. But if you're going there for the experiences, I think like if you can just stick to carry on, there's like really cheap flights out there too, right? Like where they only allow a carry on, like if you're trying to like save money. So I don't know. That's one of my tips too.
That's huge. Yes. Oh my gosh. If you're going to do a trip like that, you save so much if you just take a carry on. Traveling light is the best thing. I wish I had told myself that when I was younger, because I was over here with my 50-pound maleta. I'm like, no, like, girl, stop it. And just take a carry on. It is so much easier to like travel that way, and it does save stress and saves money, because carrying a lot around, oh gosh, it can get pretty, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. I love this. I hope that the listeners are enjoying this. I hope you guys are. Let us know in the comments wherever you're viewing this from. Um, Super cool. Is there any like last tip that you want to throw out there before we close out this part?
Yeah, if you are really desiring to make an international trip happen, please do it. The best way to get it done, because I know a lot of us is like, I want to make this trip happen. I want to make it happen. And it kind of just stays in our minds. I'm a big person on like putting your dreams on paper. So I would
Mm.
say, okay, where do you want to go? Jot it down. By when do you want to make this happen? Is it next year? Is it late this year? Is it in 2 years? Whatever the time frame may be, put the year down, because then that tells your brain, I just set down a deadline for myself on paper, and like now you're more aware of it. And then to help you through that of like making it come alive, start YouTubing or Googling what it looks like. Start looking at activities that you might want to do and jotting those activities down. Like, oh my gosh, like horseback riding on the beach in Greece. Okay, I would like to do that. Or like salsa classes in Barcelona. Okay,
Ooh,
I would like to do that. And start really visualizing yourself there. Like if you have a clear vision, even if you don't know how, the what, the when, but like you feel it in you that you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like this can really be it for me next year or whatever, like it's gonna just draw you so much closer, and it's gonna have you not push it away. It's not gonna have you be like, oh, it's been a year and I haven't planned anything, and never mind, I'll just travel in 2 years from now. So a lot of opportunities open up in your brain where you're like, okay, I'm gonna start budgeting, I'm gonna start saving $100 a month for it, or I'm gonna start doing this. Like you really get excited for it, and I feel like that's how it can come a lot closer to you versus waiting years and years and years to like go and do it. So that's
Ooh. I love that one so much. It's actually challenging me because I'm like, you know what, Priscilla, you need to do this too. You need to start making your, because I feel like it's so true. Like at least like with my mom, she's put out her Europe trip like her whole life, you know, and it may never happen if I'm not like, come on, let's do this for you. But even for me, I think what you said of like start looking at experiences, because then it makes the trip more possible, like it makes it more alive. And you could even be like, okay, I saved for this experience. You know, if it's too intimidating to like save a big chunk of money, it could be like, I save for that experience. All right, I know now I save for my flight. Because another thing that we can do is like just think, oh, it's expensive. But we don't even know how much a flight can actually be, how much, you know, transportation and all of that stuff.
Yeah, can I say something from there? Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, I love what you just said. Sometimes we do think like, oh my gosh, it's too expensive. So like when I get the money, but you're never gonna get the money if you never budget for it, right? So a lot of what I
Yeah.
did, like back back in the day, I would like plan a trip, and then like when that month would come, I would spend so much on my debit, from my savings, on my credit card, and that was just a big overwhelming amount. Versus now, it's like, okay, if I have a trip a year from now, divided by 12 months, or get like what you said, get the actual pricing, look into it. It might be cheaper than you think, and let's say it's gonna cost you, let's just say $3,000 if it's this like big trip, and you're like, okay, I want to travel there in 15 months. Okay, 3,000 divided by 15 months, how much do you have to save? What if you have to just save like 150 a month? So then 15 months from now, you have all that cash up front, and you're feeling like excited that you have the cash. The finance skill is not even gonna be there. You're gonna go
Yeah.
all, and it's just gonna feel great. So that's great. I love that you said that. Check out how much it is and get an estimate on how much it is. Because something that my sister brought up, now that you said this, um, someone asked, and I get this question too, like, oh, you haven't been to the state? Oh, you haven't been to New York? Oh, you haven't been here? And I'm like, no, I actually travel more abroad than I've traveled to the States, because when I've compared, sometimes it costs me less to travel abroad than to travel.
Mm.
And I
Hmm.
remember my sister getting asked that question of like, girl, why haven't you been to this state? Just like someone at like friends asking. And she's like, girl, when I went abroad, it costed less than if I had gone to New York. And like they did the math. Gas here is expensive. Flights here are expensive. Meals are like $20 to $30 when you're out. If you are having like more on like, oh, a nice meal type of thing, like a regular meal. But all of that, when you look at it abroad in Spain, or where, I mean, I'm thinking of Spain because I live there, but it's like, oh, $5 on a meal, €1 on a drink. Like you said, 20 euros from Paris to, where'd you go? From like,
Paris to Barcelona.
yeah, from Paris to
Hmm.
Barcelona, 20 euros. In car, that is not $20 worth of gas. In car, it would, oh my gosh. So really think about it. Sometimes international travel to some places, not all of them, but can actually turn out to be the same or about the same amount of money if you are looking into traveling within the States, because it's so
Yeah.
expensive here, plus
Yeah.
taxes. Like, yeah, so that's a big tip.
I agree. I think sometimes you get more bang for your buck out of the country. Like also, I mean, I haven't been to a ton of places, but I've actually been traveling more internet like nationally. I was never really interested in that though. I was always like when I think of traveling, I think of like Costa Rica and Rome. You know,
Yeah,
like I want to be out there
yeah,
just because of like I think also you need to figure out what kind of traveler you are. I
yeah,
think you mentioned like you're the type that likes different ways of living. And I think that's the impact I'm trying to get when I travel. Because here in the States, like I just went to Chicago, it's like cool. Yes, like I saw it's nice, but I'm not getting like this like, oh, this is different, you know? Like I don't know. I don't think I've ever gotten that in the States compared to like going abroad.
Yeah, it's a sense of like a culture shock because it's like, what? This is you see a whole other way of living and you come back just a different person. I feel like when I travel to California, I come back the same Claudia, but I go off to Costa Rica, I'm a different woman. Like it changes your life because you have deep conversations with people across the world. You see and you hear things so differently, and it puts your life and how you live into perspective, and you just come back a different person. It's that
Mhm.
feeling of you're walking in a place where nobody knows you and you're excited and you're trying. Every new day is such an experience. Even I don't know if you drink cafecito, but like even asking for
Mhm.
coffee out in Costa Rica, for example, it's like like it's just you feel so alive, and it's I understand that feeling. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. So to finish off, I would love to know what's your, I think I know, but what's your number one place that you would recommend people travel to? And what's your number one next on your list? Or a dream one, like one that feels far away. Either one you can choose.
I love that. So as you may or may not know, it is Spain. It is oh my gosh, I love that place so much for so many reasons. I would highly recommend you, anybody listening, to travel there. The people, the beaches, the lifestyle, people there work to live. And if you want to experience what that feels like, I think the southern piece of Spain. All right, I'm specifically talking about the southern piece because I've kind of been around Spain, but like the southern piece, that wow, I would highly recommend it. Also because it's inexpensive. It's really inexpensive. You can really make it happen. And then next on my list, funny enough, Spain. But okay, you asked the one.
Otro. No, I'm just kidding.
The next on my list, I mean, ooh, okay, it's between these two, girl. It's between Colombia and Peru. Like my
Mm.
next thing, I have traveled a lot through Europe, and now I'm more centering towards like South America and Central America. This last summer I toured Central America, and now I'm looking at South America. So Peru or Colombia are definitely next. I mean, those cultures are beautiful. The food is popping. La gente, la música. I cannot wait. So it's one of those two.
Wow. And then like when you're planning this, do you plan with a like friend or family member or como le haces?
Yeah, so it's you, I mean, it's a mix of both. So for example, when I toured Central America last year, it was with my sister. The previous year, I traveled to Puerto Rico with my friends. I have when I go to Spain, like with my friends next time,
Mm.
it's solo. So it is a little mix of everything.
Yeah, cool. That's so awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this separate segment with me and being a little experimental. I put her on the spot. I was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Are you down? And she was. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing those little nuggets. You know, I think the title of the podcast is First Gen Healing, but I truly see these things as healing, you know, like traveling is healing. And not I think it's like we're paving the way for what that can look like, you know, and to share it and to be like, hey, like for example, I've solo traveled, you have too, or here's how I got into traveling and this is how I'm doing my business. I think like these conversations are just healing in their own special way. So thank you so much for having it with us today.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yay, thank you. All right, guys. Well, remember if you like this episode, share it with your amigas, amigos, amigues. Comment down below what is your dream destination. So we're going to dare you to tell us and put it out into the world, right? Because one of the tips is that like start like putting it out into the universe. So let us know what is your dream destination. We'd love to read. And other than that, I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you, everyone.